Hi everyone, I'm Kayla.
I'm Tavis.
Welcome to our podcast, Stories of Resilience, where we share the everyday challenges people go through and the resilience that comes out of overcoming those challenges.
We hope to provide you encouragement, hope, and empowerment as you listen to these incredible stories of resilience. Thanks
Thank
for
you for
tuning
tuning
in.
in. Okay. Hi everyone, welcome to Stories of Resilience. Today we're here with Clara, a supervisor from Health. You want to introduce yourself and share a little bit about the work that you do?
Clara, health program supervisor. A little bit about what health does. I think we do a little bit of everything, but a lot of the bulk of the work that we did do was our COVID navigation towards testing and vaccinations. And now we're working on community health workers and providing services to community, outreach and navigation, and everything in between.
Awesome. Oh my God, that's so cool. So today's topic is kind of like your parents' story of coming from Samoa over to here in the US. So could you share a little bit about what your parents' life was like growing up in Samoa and like what kind of circumstances brought them over here?
Yeah. I always give this analogy is my dad was a city boy and my mom was a country girl. So my mom comes from a family of 17. She's the oldest girl.
Eldest daughter.
Yeah, so she's the oldest girl, and then she does have an older brother, but typically in the Samoan community, the eldest daughter holds a lot of responsibilities. So essentially, she was a second mom to the rest of her siblings and also her mom's right-hand person. And they kind of grew up in the countryside part of Samoa. So they did a lot of their own planting, a lot of their own landscaping and things like that. As for my dad, he is from a family of three, but he's also the oldest boy. His family comes from a lot of businesses, and they're also in parliament, so just like politics or government like that. So they're pretty well off in that aspect. So I always say it's a mesh of like two different worlds that like make sense.
Yeah. Do you ever like see that in like the way in your parents' dynamic, like the way that your mom grew up versus the way your dad grew up?
Yeah. So my mom was very much like today in the present, and my dad was very much a visionary. Like he likes to have like big plans and plan things out in the future. As for my mom, she's just like we're in the today. Like let's take care of today and whatever today brings.
Wow. Oh, that's really cool. So for your family growing up in Samoa, like what kind of brought them over to the US? Like what made them decide like, you know what, like I'm going to leave everything that I know and my family? Because that's a huge decision.
Yeah. Sometimes I even ask myself like why they decided to leave paradise, right? But from the stories that I've heard from my mom, she was brought over to help a family friend, I believe. The details are a little weird. I don't know like what specifics, but from what I know, it sounds kind of like not like a housemaid, but more so like support or just like extra help in the house with like kids while people are working. I don't know if it was her choice to come, but I didn't get a chance to ask my mom those questions before. But for my dad, his dad and his stepmom, I think. I don't know what he refers to her to, but they brought him here so that he had opportunities, like more opportunities than they were back on in Samoa. So
yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. Where like sometimes you're like, why did my parents like leave paradise? Because like my parents are immigrants too. My family is from China, and then my dad came here to get his PhD, but then he actually went back to China a few years ago to start his own business. And there's some moments where I'm like, well, like if you ended up back in the motherland anyway, why did you leave? And then, there's especially if when you go back and you're like, oh wow, I don't know if you ever have moments where you're like, my life could have been so different if my family never left. Like I wouldn't have to deal with some of the headaches that I'm dealing with having to
Yeah.
be an immigrant here.
Yeah, I think too, but I'm like, things happen for a reason because I don't think my parents would have met if they didn't come
Yeah.
here. Because they both have mentioned like their plan was not to marry within our
Right.
culture, but they ended up with each other. So I'm just like,
Yeah.
it's funny how that happens because
Yeah.
without that, like there wouldn't be no us. So
That's
like
so
there's like a
true.
little bit of beauty in the struggle of that. So I
Yeah.
like to look at
Yeah.
it that way.
Wait, how did they meet?
I think my mom was so in Torrance. There's a place called Alpine Village, and at the time, it was like a really big place where a lot of Pacific Islanders used to meet. And so my mom worked there, and I don't know how my dad got in the mix, but I think one of his friends introduced the both of them, and then they kind of kicked it off, and then
Yeah.
ta-da! Here we are a few years later.
Here you are, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah,
I love that like they were like we super weren't planning to like, have any of this, but like it happened.
Yeah.
And you have a beautiful family now.
Oh, I know. Yeah. And I wish like we would have known earlier to like just collect those stories, right? Like their stories of growing up, like what did you do for fun as a kid, or what did So I think what would be helpful is like just to get those stories now,
Yeah, definitely. It's so real. So, your parents come here and then, they are in the process of applying for like permanent residency, applying for that green card, but it's a long process. So would you be open to sharing a little bit about like what was that process like for you? And
yeah, so initially when they came here to the States, I want to say like the 90s, maybe a little bit of the early 2000s, they initially had a lawyer that they were working with. And what happened was that lawyer ran off with the money for their papers. So things were obviously a little bit maybe not as strict as they are now.
Yeah.
So someone told them that they had to wait. Like it'll be easier if they waited till I turned 21, because then doing the paperwork would be a lot easier because I'm kin to kin. So I'm their daughter,
Right.
so direct relationship. So it wasn't until I want to say 2013, I think was the year that I turned 21. I'm like obviously aging myself, but I didn't know when we initially went to go put in the paperwork that you needed 3 years of taxes to show pretty much that like you can afford to take care of your parents, whoever you're co-petitioning for. So luckily, right out of high school, I went right into the workforce. So I did have those 3 years of taxes.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. But what they don't tell you is you have to meet a certain like annual like pay to co-petition by yourself.
Wow.
So the first person we worked on was my mom's green card. And at the time, obviously I didn't make enough money. So I had to look for someone to co-sponsor with me. So both of our pays will like be an equivalent to the whatever the requirement was.
Can I ask how much like the minimum was?
I think for my mom, I want to say it was if it was one person petitioning, I think it was 19 or maybe 21 like thousand. And at the time, minimum wage was not, I think I was getting paid like $12, $13.
Yeah, especially when you're like, if you were to petition at 21, you would have had to start working at 18. It's hard to like find full-time work when you're that young. Like,
yeah.
I know you're like illegally like an adult, but like, especially if you're going to college or you're going to school, like you just don't have all of that like yet.
Yeah, I got really lucky. I had a relative that worked at a day program for the mentally disabled adults. So she was able to get me a full-time job. Granted, it wasn't paying, top dollar or anything, but it's a full-time job. I was able to contribute to our household and things like that. So I did have a full-time job. It just didn't pay enough to meet that pay requirement. So
so then you petitioned for your mom, like what like what was kind of like the paperwork that was involved, or like the process?
So we went through the lawyer we went through was really nice. Like him and his assistant or secretary, who her name was Anna. She was really great. She's who I really like communicated with the most. Every application cost. His obviously his time cost, but the applications to apply for permanent residency also cost. So everything started to add up. You have to go to these specific doctors and get these specific physicals. And then, so my mom's paperwork was a little bit different because the name on her passport was different from the name that my dad put on my birth certificate. So it showed that it was two different people. So we had to take an additional DNA test. At the time, it was like $500 that we had to pay for a DNA test, right? That was like cleared through whatever folks needed through immigration. And to prove that the person on the passport is the same person that's on my birth certificate. And then once we got that, then the ball finally started getting rolling. It took maybe like 4 years before we finally got her green card. Yeah.
Wow. That must have been so stressful.
Stressful is a word. There's another word towards it. But it was, first, it was like, law is a completely different language from the English language. And when it's your first time looking at it, obviously, you're like, I have no clue what this says. And then you also don't really have, well, for me, I didn't really have anyone to ask, like in terms of like, well, how do I navigate this? So it took a lot of like my own personal research, trial and error. There was sometimes that when we applied for an application, like we would miss the deadline. So we would have to reapply and pay for that application again.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's like trial and error kind of. So, but the stress got to be a lot where I bumped heads a lot with my parents because I think they were just so eager to like get their paperwork. And then it's also during a time where immigration is starting to become a bigger talk in government and just in policies. So I think there was a little bit of fear, but I think at the time there wasn't too much talk in that current administration.
It's difficult because it's like, you're on the one hand, you're doing the best that you can for your parents, and I know that they see that, but on the other hand, it's like they have this very real anxiety of like, well, I just want to get my green card. I just want to get my green card. I want to be able to like, have that peace of mind. And then there's also like, you can't make the process go any faster than it already is.
I was like, I can't call the president and be like, can you expedite this, please? My parents is like,
my parents are anxious.
So, but I'm really honestly grateful because I had my siblings at the time that like really helped with that load too. And at the time I was training for the LA Marathon. So like I was running on the weekend, like really long runs on the weekend with a group of, Pacific Islanders who were also running their first time. So a lot of tears on the trails and a lot of just like them helping me talk through things, and just like it was really like perfect for like my mental well-being because I was losing it. I was probably gonna go bald, like Britney Spears moment, because it was getting there. But I think looking back at it now, like I'm grateful that like I endured through all of that, because it was like I don't wish that stress on anyone.
Are you still are you still in contact with like the people that you were running with at that time?
Alisi, who used to be our supervisor. She was one of our, I like to call her team leads. So she was running with us. But a lot of folks that we are doing community work with, they're all like, so I'm still all in contact with everyone.
Oh, that's awesome. It's so important, like, when dealing with like family stress, to have a group of people who like really know what like you're going through. I don't know if anyone else in the running group went through like immigration stuff too, but it's like people who get like where you're coming from with like the family dynamic or like the stress, or who are really able to like ground you.
They did. I think just them hearing me out and hearing me vent, I think was like probably the biggest service that they could have ever done for me. And then like even after we finished our runs, we would go get brunch, and then we'll probably talk about it some more. And then on our car rides home, like then we'll talk about it. So like just them lending their time was probably the biggest thing they could do for me.
Making you feel seen and heard.
So, and then just even though like a lot of us are not all Samoan, like, but just similarities in the way that our family dynamics are. Like, it was just so like just refreshing to hear. Like, no, what you're going through is like it's not okay, but you'll like persevere. So
yeah, I guess like related to that, I wanted to ask like what were some of your favorite parts about growing up in like a Samoan community or like in a larger Pacific Islander community?
yeah, I think the mindset of like us versus I kind of thing. I think being in the Western world, right, it's very much like independent. Like it's for like everything has to be centered around you.
Yeah.
Like you want to do good, you want to go to college, you want to get a good degree. Like everything's centered around you. But I think, at least in my experience being in growing up in a Samoan community. Everything was always us. Like, what can we do to better us? Like, how can we contribute? How can we better one another? So I think the benefits of having like not everyone was fortunate enough, but I had both parents under one household, and my mom stayed home while my dad provided. And I think me and my siblings kind of like benefited from that because we came home to a clean house, right? And home cooked meals. Like we didn't really go out to eat. My mom didn't really trust that too much. She was like, I don't know what these people are putting in my food, but she like always had a big pot for like 20 people, and we're like, why are you cooking for so many? But it's always the thinking ahead, like, oh, you don't know who might stop by, or if you bring your friends over. So I think just like everything was always done with family. Like, what does family want to do? And sometimes, it can have its like downfalls, but I think at the end of it, like it just makes us a little bit stronger because we're more tight knit than like I would say maybe most other families that don't have that dynamic, and just like the love and respect that we have for one another, even in disagreements, like I think is one of like the true benefits of it. So just like a sense of community, a sense of service, like me being in community work just makes so much sense because we do that already at such an early age. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful, and that reminds me of like what you're saying earlier about your mom being one of 17, and you never grow up alone. You never face anything alone. You're always in it with other people, and I think it's also so funny when she was like, oh, I don't really want to go out to eat because I don't trust what's in that food. But she grew up growing her own stuff and knowing exactly everything that goes into her system. So I think that's really, really beautiful.
I know. I used to always make fun because she would always make soup. But God rest her soul, like that's all we eat now. Like that's all I crave. I was like, man, I could go for a good soup right now.
Yeah, no, soup's awesome.
But trust me, our house misses her cooking so much. So it's like it's different, So, but I'm grateful that we got to have that experience growing up, like home cooked meals. Like it's just almost kind of unheard of now.
It
like
really is,
I don't know if there's many people that cook at home anymore, but it was cool just to know, like, oh, I'm about to have something good. I wonder what mom made for dinner tonight. So,
yeah, there's so much love in that too.
Yeah, and you don't think about it now till like later on. I guess when you're a little bit older, you kind of see what it's like, and you're like, oh wow, there was a lot of love that was put into this. So,
yeah, definitely. So, like, kind of going back to like your parents' immigration story. So, your mom finally got her green card. Your dad also finally got his green card. But was the process any different between like your mom and your dad?
I think my dad's was a little bit easier, only because most of the things matched up for him. For my dad's paperwork, I was able to do it by myself because obviously now I have a better job. It's get a better rate. And I finally meet that threshold. So I didn't have to really reach out to family and friends to ask to co-position, because I think that that's a big ask for some folks. Even when you think like your loved ones would be supportive of it, you'd be surprised when you ask and they're like, no, I don't think I want to do it. So I was really happy that was not an issue for my dad's paperwork. So. But yeah, his was a little bit easier. I think I actually had to take a lot of time off of work for his appointments. So it was a lot easier. I know like just the relief for the both of them once they got their green cards. I think it was just like, okay, they have something that can protect him. Because at least during my dad's paperwork, obviously ICE became a thing. So we had to take extra precautions. So I told my mom, like, hey, don't open the door to anybody. That's not us. For my dad, I had to tape his alien number on his car, on his windshield, like on his driver's side and on his windshield.
Oh my God.
Just to like have extras. And then I also gave him a number of a lawyer that I think at the time we seen the nonprofit that was like giving out resources.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, call this person if you get pulled over for any means. And then just, you know, you don't have to open your door. You can roll down your window, but you don't have to, like, you know, here are your rights.
Yeah, know your rights.
Yeah. So I was like, I was not taking any chances. There was, at the time we lived in a Cambodia town in Long Beach. So there was a lot of stories of ICE agents taking family members and family coming home to their families not being home.
Oh,
so you can only, like, you know, we live in the heart of it. So I was like, do not open your door. I don't care if it's our neighbor or if it's the mailman or, you know, anybody. Like, I just, at the time, like, we did not trust anybody.
Yeah. That is really scary, especially when it happens, like, literally in the same neighborhood that you live in.
Yeah. So just, like, even just the word, you know, like, families talking to each other, like, hey, be careful, like, stay inside, don't open your doors to anybody. So I think because we lived in the same neighborhood for so long, like, all our neighbors kind of like looked out for each other. So
yeah, that's really awesome that, like, I guess what I'm hearing from that is that community is strength.
Yeah.
You know, safety comes from being in community with each other, from looking out for each other.
Yeah.
And that's what really keeps, you know, you and your family safe at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think it was just like a lot of mutual aid in our community. And it's so funny because a lot of them speak limited English.
Yeah.
But, like, for some reason they're able to communicate, right? So I always say it's like love is a universal language.
Yeah.
And, like, even if it's like the nodding of a head or giving of food, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's always like just a show of respect. So I think that was always such a cool thing in our neighborhood at the time. So yeah.
Yeah, they get it.
Yeah.
So, you know, your family gets their green cards, and then, you know, once they get their green cards, like, what kind of opportunities or other things opened up for them?
Yeah, so they were able to travel, right? So both of my parents came here in the 80s, like late 80s. So they haven't been back home in like 20, 30 plus years. So you can only imagine things change in like 1 year, right? So now like a span of 30 years. And the opportunity to get to see their families again, you know, so it's like we were able to get her a passport. We were able to, you know, get her health insurance to be able to pay for, at least for my mother, she was diabetic and she had to go on dialysis. So all of that was being supported by her health insurance through the state. So there was such a big help. And I think just the joy of knowing you're going to see your, you know, some of your siblings, like obviously some of my mom's siblings had passed on. And so, but the fact that she was able to go back one more time to see like her siblings and how the land's been flourishing and, you know, just things like that, I think was more than I could, like, was way worth the stress that I went through or that I would say me and my family went through to get her to that point, to be able to gift her that like the opportunity to go back home. So.
Yeah. And you accompanied your mom on that, like, last trip.
So I went with her. It was, you know, when you could feel somebody's joy, like so I felt her joy from the moment we got dropped off at Tom Bradley at LAX, all the way home, like throughout the 2 weeks that we were out there, like she was just gleaming from ear to ear, like just to be around family, you know, like I could, like, here in the States, like she has extended family, but
for sure
there's nothing like having like your own siblings, right? And your own nieces and nephews, and to kind of like see where they are now. Like I could, for me, I don't know if I could do that with my own siblings. Like I was like, no, I have to see what you're doing like tomorrow. But I can see just how the way she was. And a lot of things when we went back home, I understood why she was the way she was, just by the dynamic of seeing how she was with her siblings. I was like, oh, so that's why you're bossy, because, you know, you do that with your siblings. But it was just so cool to see her. Like, I seen another side of her.
Yeah.
Like back home, like she was just happy. She was around a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously, me and my siblings don't have kids yet, but like there were so many kids. I was like, I couldn't like keep count.
Track of them all.
I'm like, oh my gosh. Or just seeing the land that she grew up on, right? Like that her and her siblings worked on with her dad, and just like she was talking about where her mom gave birth to one of her siblings at a tree, and she told her to go grab like stuff to come get her little sibling. And I'm just like, wow, like this is the road you walk to school. Like our parents, like when they if they're immigrant, they always give that story of like, oh, I walked like miles to go to school. But like it was very true in my mom's like story. Like I was like, wow, like you really did walk far, and you also took your siblings with you. So I was like, the amount of respect that I seen from her siblings to her, I was like, wow. So you must have really like played a integral part in like their lives. And a lot of her siblings were like, we thought we were never gonna see you again, like so I was like, wow, what a gift. What a gift to experience that, and then also be a part of that, the process that was able to get you here.
So like when your dad got to go back, what was kind of his reaction to everything?
So I didn't get a chance to go with my dad to his trip, but at least from the stories that my uncles and them told us, because we went back last year, was that he had a lot of fun. Like he enjoyed himself, just like the reconnection of everyone. So I think his was probably more realistic that he would actually go back. Like they didn't think like they weren't gonna see him, but they also traveled too. So they've traveled here to the States,
okay, cool.
To see us. So I think because they had the resources and the opportunities to be able to fly here and see like each other, I think that there wasn't a lack of seeing like family, but I think it was cool for him to go back to see his dad, because his dad is still alive. So I think just seeing him and like reconnecting and having those conversations with him like has, I think, been helpful for him.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So I shared like earlier that my dad went back to China, and like you really do get to see your parent in like a whole different light when they're in their home country, because like I saw my dad like happy in a way I've never seen before. Where I was like, oh, like he's reconnecting with his like college friends. I was like, I didn't even know you had college friends like that.
You have friends?
I know. I was being able to just like feel like he's at home, and be able to eat like all the food that he hasn't been able to eat like the past 20-30 years that he was here in the US, and just like really it's almost like he's like a whole new person, with the kind of joy that like he was able to he has like now that he's back in China. So it's really like
something about being back home. I think that's what it is, like being back home where things are comfortable. And like I think especially if they've immigrated here, I think there's not that sense of like community, you know what I mean? Like there's not places that you know of that you can just like walk down the street and get like maybe your favorite snack, or like, oh, like a friend's house is down the street. Like I think here everything's so different. So I think when they go back home, I think that sense of relief, like, oh, I'm home, like I can relax.
You can relax.
I'm glad like you got to see, like I think it's always so cool for us to see our parents in a different like different life, I guess, like just happy, because I think sometimes being here can rob you of a little bit of that joy, because like maybe we're always working, and then obviously I know in Samoa like bills aren't like really a big thing as it is here. Like you gotta pay rent, you gotta pay this, that. Back home like we own land, like so we really only pay for like electricity and then maybe maintenance on the house, water, but you own the land, so you get to keep all of that. So I think the stresses here are a lot different. So I think when you go back, you're like, oh, okay, I don't have to worry about this for right now.
So. That's so real.
So
I guess like in wrapping up, like you helped your parents through this really incredible journey, and now if you had to like share some takeaways or like some points of like resilience that you took away from this experience, like what would that be?
that it's not impossible.
Yeah.
I think at the beginning of it, I looked at it as this like huge task. Like, where am I going to get the funding for this? How am I going to make time to get this? Like, if this happens, like, what am I going to do next? But I think just taking it step by step, trying to make somewhat of a plan, but being flexible to like, making adjustments or, rerouting your journey. I think it's worth it. I would say if you're someone in my position that's going and helping with the paperwork, to find an outlet, like a healthy outlet for you to have, because it will eventually get stressful.
Yeah.
And you will have those times where you're just like, I don't want to do it anymore kind of thing. I would just say like find like 1 or 2 healthy outlets that make sense for you, to kind of like bring you back to like, what is the bigger picture? Like what's the main goal that you're working towards? And that's getting that paperwork for your parents so that they can have that sense of safety and that sense of relief, even for yourself, for you, so you don't have to worry for anything else. But yeah, that would probably be my biggest takeaway, is that it's not impossible, and to also reach out to your local like community and ask for those resources, because it wasn't until after it was done that I realized that we have folks who do pro bono immigration work. So I would highly recommend that, like reach out to people, talk, research, Google, like whatever you can do. Like there's people that are offering this type of help, and to take advantage of it. Like if you need to save for a year, put a little bit away to like get those like that funding for that paperwork, I would do it. Yeah. And if you have siblings, like talk with your siblings, like make a plan. Like there's nothing, like the amount of money that we put in was like, it doesn't compare to the joy that we got to witness, even in that little bit of time. Like it does not compare at all. So but yeah, that would be my biggest takeaway, is just, and then talk about it. Like I think there's such a fear around like immigration that people don't want to talk about their like personal stories. And I think there's so much power in just like talking about those stories. Like even for myself, like anytime I have a chance to talk about it, I'm like, you should just do it. Let me know how I can help. Like, you'll be surprised the amount of people that are going through similar situations, but because there is that fear, which is rightfully so, that people just kind of want to keep it to themselves. So I'm like, just reach out to folks. I promise you there's people willing to help, and that this is it is a obstacle, but it's not something that you can't get through. So yeah.
Wow, thank you so much, Clara, for sharing. And I'm so like inspired by like, your family story and like your love for each other and the sense of community that you all have.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah,
and for
thanks for
joining
having me. Thanks for having me.
So